But who knows? There you go. But that is the sad news that's been breaking all weekend. And many people are frustrated that the press has largely ignored it. And in fact, some leaders in Syria are begging the press in Israel to please cover it. They're even pleading for the Israeli government to come to their aid. We'll be joined by our reporter on the ground in Israel, brought to you by our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com. And by the way, I just hung up with our D.C. correspondent, and it looks like by August 1st, we'll have a very much a bigger presence in Washington, D.C. By August 1st as we finish establishing that office there. But we got contracts and funds to raise and all that goes with that. So very important to have, I think, someone in D.C. and someone in Israel. Aaron will join us in just a minute. In the meantime, let's go to our friend Shahram Hadian. He broadcasts with us as well, and you can watch his broadcast at worldviewtube.com on the weekends. He joins us now from his studio out of the Knoxville, Tennessee area. Shahram, welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Brandon, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Great to have you with us. Tell our audience what's happening. Give us the details. I know even some Muslims are being murdered by this new leader. I mean, this is kind of what Leo Holman, myself, I think we pretty well predicted this, that Assad was no, good guy. But, the devil you know is sometimes better than the devil you don't know, right? As the old saying goes. And we said, look, if this guy is basically an ISIS leader, I don't care what he calls himself now, if he's basically a splinter of ISIS or is ISIS, can you imagine what he's going to do to the people of Syria? Well, now we're finding out. Do we have a count on the number of Christians that are murdered before you give us the background?
Well, it's hard to know. If we follow the sources that are the Muslims themselves, the jihadists themselves that are posting, they are claiming that number is up to 9,000. That's what they're bragging about right now, that they've killed 9,000 over the past number of days. They themselves are saying that they thought that number was 4,000. I was just watching a video before I came on with you. But it's hard to know exactly. The organization for human rights, some organization for human rights was saying that it was 1,300 Christians. As you mentioned, they are killing some of these Alawite, quote, Muslims. This is a very, very, very small sect of Islam that they are killing because Jolani, this ISIS splinter, as we know, is a Sunni sect, right? This is the Sunni Muslims. This is exactly as ISIS was. And as you said, Brandon, we predicted this because just as in Iraq, when they deposed Saddam Hussein, where he was protecting the Christian minority, Bashar al-Assad was to some extent giving protection to the Druze, to the Christian minority in Syria, who, by the way, let's not forget, had already been through a horrific civil war and death back in 2014, 15, 16, when Obama was president. That number had already dwindled in Syria from approximately 10%, some say down to maybe only 4 or 5%. Now, this is ethnic cleansing. And what is beyond maddening, because as you have done, I've been watching the graphic stuff that's been coming out, mostly from X. And now, as you said, what are the chances that this is an accident, that X goes down today? And there is silence from the American media. Like, I'm looking all over the place, Brandon. I'm looking at all over the place. And other than, Jihad Watch or Geller Report, there's nothing from the American media. There's nothing from InfoWars. There's nothing from even the conservative ones that love to bash Israel. They love to attack the Jews. They love to parade their, where's Candace Owens? Where's Tucker Carlson? Where is Brighteon? Where are these sources that have attacked Israel relentlessly with their Jew hatred, but once again are silent when Christians are being absolutely slaughtered, massacred? And we said this exactly what happened, because what happened? Turkey has taken over Syria. This Jolani is basically a puppet of Erdogan in Turkey. The CIA armed these people. So we have blood on our hands once again. I'll turn it back to you because, I could just go on. I can't tell you how grieved I've been all weekend by what we're seeing and the silence coming from the and where are the Christians?
Yeah.
Where are the churches?
Well, I think part of it is that people like, I don't know, Justin Peters, James White, they've all told us Islam is not a threat. That, in fact, you right here in my backyard, James White said to Yasser Qadhi, that Jew hating, Holocaust denying, Hitler defending, jihadi preaching imam, that when persecution comes, we'll have to hold each other's hands, you know. And of course, you and I and Usama, we called that out. We said, "Are you kidding me? They will be killing the Christians. There's not going to be any helping each other." But weren't we told Islam is not a spiritual threat to the church?
Yeah, that's exactly what Justin Peters, who came out and defended James White in the practice of interfaith and engaging in, quote, dialogue with someone who is a known jihadist like Yasser Qadhi, who, by the way, is behind the 400-acre Islamic city, Epic, in Texas now, that they're trying to build a completely Islamic city in America under Sharia. Justin Peters said very clearly that Islam is not a spiritual threat, though he acknowledged, well, you know, that there may be a physical, but they're not a spiritual threat. Well, I beg to differ, Justin. Where are you now? Where is James White? Where is Justin Peters? Where is John MacArthur? Where is Phil Johnson? Where are the reformers? Where are the preterists? Where are all these people, by the way, Brandon, who had come out and bashed Israel and say Israel is ethnic cleansing and Israel is committing genocide and Israel is occupiers because of their warped theology? Where are they now when their Christian brothers and sisters are being slaughtered literally by the hundreds, if not by the thousands? Again, the Muslims are the ones who are bragging. I'm watching some of these sites. They're the ones who are going on online and saying, praise be to Allah, we hit 9,000. Now, that probably includes
I just want to clarify that. Just want to clarify one thing, because I don't think you were doing this. I think you just were rattling off two different groups. Because you don't believe, and I don't believe, that John MacArthur or Phil Johnson or Justin Peters would call Israel an occupier. They would not do that. But their eschatology would be in line with ours to some degree, although some of them have now described themselves as leaky dispensationalists. Right. But there are groups that are doing that. So I just want to make sure the audience understands. You jumped from one group to another, not to merge the two groups.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize about that. Absolutely, you're right. So yeah, so my critique of James White and Justin Peters and those guys was specifically with their commentary about Islam being that
and defense of interfaith dialogue.
Defense of interfaith dialogue.
That this was evangelism. They actually said this was evangelism. That you and I and others don't care about the Muslims because this is how you do evangelism. They stated that that James White gets a pass because of his long track record of ministry. But of course, you know, that's ridiculous. We don't see that. And of course, James White himself has said that 2 John, which says, don't be involved in spiritual enterprises with those who deny the deity of Christ, which Islam does. They mock the Trinity, and they say that those of us who believe the Trinity, and the Trinity, which would include the deity of Christ, means that, you know, we're polytheist and we're therefore, you know, apostate. 2 John says, don't have anything to do with those people that deny the deity of Christ. And yet that's exactly what White was sitting there doing, you know, and he says that verse, 2 John, doesn't apply to today. So again, just to keep everything in context, we were saying back in 2017, I said to my wife, can you believe that's been 8 years? Can you believe that's been 8 years? It seems like a snap of my finger, you know, it's gone so fast. But we said back then, when we see Christians being murdered and slaughtered by the Islamists, what are these guys going to say? Because they told us we could find common ground with them. They said that this is evangelism, interfaith dialogue. They said that we needed to protect each other, and this is how you and that Islam is not a spiritual threat. What are they going to say when we see lots of Christians murdered by Islam? Remember when we warned that? Remember when we warned that back then? And where are they today? They're silent because they have no choice. If this is a spiritual battle, as Ephesians 6 says, how can one say Islam is not a spiritual threat? That's like saying Satanism is not a spiritual threat to Christians. No, it is. Satanism is a spiritual threat because the Bible claims that that's exactly what's going on in this world. A spiritual battle being waged against Christians, right? And how do we respond? By saying, oh, there's no spiritual threat to any of us. No, you follow James chapter 4. You line up behind God, submit to God, resist the devil, and pray that he flees from you, right? It doesn't say, oh, you don't have to worry. There's no spiritual threat from Satan. It actually acknowledges there are the snares of the devil. I mean, just because someone says Islam is not a spiritual threat doesn't mean that we have to worry about Christians converting to Islam. That's not what we're saying. And that's not what we were saying. They tried to take the argument and turn it around on us. Well, these guys are worried that somehow Christians are going to start converting to Islam. We never said that. That's not what we said. That's what they said to try to muddy the waters of what and cover what they were doing. What we were saying is that Islam is going to confuse many non-Christians, number one. Number two, many Christians will now think that evangelism, interfaith dialogue. And number three, many Christians will not see the threat of Sharia and Islam as being a spiritual threat, and thereby allow for the infiltration of our country. And guess what will happen? Their children and grandchildren will end up being murdered and or raped and then murdered, which I don't care. That is a physical threat, but that is also a spiritual threat, because when you rape someone, that's not just a physical act. That is also done at the spiritual level. Agree or disagree?
Yeah. I agree, absolutely. And you did a phenomenal job laying out the exact things that we were concerned about. I'm not going to belabor that. You already did it. That was phenomenal. Those are exactly, Brandon, the things that we have brought up and continually will bring up. And today, what are we seeing in Syria? You have a nation that has now fallen to the hands of full jihadists. These are fully committed. This is the strictest interpretation of Sunni Islam. When ISIS was doing this years ago, we would say, and of course the justification, I would imagine, people like Phil of James White and Phil Johnson, these people would be, well, this is not the real Islam. This is not the real Islam. We'll show after the break, this is absolutely the real Islam. They're doing exactly what Islam calls them to do to Christians and to, quote, unbelieving Muslims.
TILministry.com, TILministry.com. We'll also be joined by Aaron, because some of these folks over in Syria are pleading with the Israeli government to come to their aid and pleading for the Israeli media to pay attention to what's happening. Again, folks, this is why this broadcast is so important. This isn't just politics, folks. This is informing the church, true believers, about what's happening in our country and around the world to fellow believers. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHouseBG.com. All right, let me know, guys, when we have, we do have Aaron? Okay, I'm not seeing him on my buttons here. All right, let's bring in Aaron, our reporter on the ground in Israel, brought to you by our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com. Aaron, how much of our conversation have you heard here?
I've been listening to it all, Brandon, with very much interest, because I think, the shocking statement about it not being a spiritual battle, a spiritual warfare, and the silence towards what's been going on. The world should be shocked by this. The EU gave a condemnation, but at the same time, and I don't know if you know this or I don't know if you reported this, but at the same time, they have invited Giuliani, the leader, to a conference on a donors conference. Don't know if you heard that. Shockingly, this is the leader. This is the man that had a $10 million bounty on his head from the United States. Remember, before he became the leader, even Joe Biden had that $10 million bounty on his head. But then he changed it because he started wearing a suit. And for your information, do you remember when the Giuliani and his bandits came in, what did Israel do? Israel demolished absolute tons and tons of ammunition, underground storage caches. Why? They knew the nature of Giuliani and his thugs, and they saw, and you know, we've been condemning the idea for the mistakes they made on October the 7th, but I think we should be praising them for what they did as soon as Giuliani came and the civil war took over in Syria. We saw the handwriting on the wall. These are ISIS. These are Al-Qaeda people. And they're showing it. You know, I've seen videos of little children being abused before they've been murdered. Wake up, world. Wake up to what's going on. And as you said before the break, Brandon, they are calling out for Israel to somehow get involved. Now, this could be massive.
Now, these are, I want to make sure our audience understands, because obviously we don't want to see anyone murdered, right? So whether they're Christians or not Christians, you know, we believe thou shalt not murder. But the first always isn't thou shalt not kill. We are allowed to take the life in defense, self-defense, and capital punishment, or when someone, and by the way, the right to take someone's life for capital crime was not given to the government, first and foremost. It was given to the civilians, to private citizens that came off the ark. Okay, that's why government is ordained by God, but government has its power derived from the people. We have these rights given to us by God. Government is just simply individuals coming together collectively to defend individual rights. But we have the right, which is why I agree with Abram when he went after Lot and those that were kidnapped, and he took his 80 men or whatever it was in his own little militia, and he took care of business, and he killed several people and got them back and took some booty for his trouble, right? Some money for his trouble. I don't want to sound like an anarchist, but I frankly believe that we have a problem in America today where we don't allow for families to carry out capital punishment on people that rape their daughters, murder their daughters. I believe this ought to be something where the government absolutely says, Dad, here's the deal. Here it is. Here's the firing squad. If you want to do it, or one of your family members, we're gonna do this, because government powers derived from the people. They did this to your family, and your family gets to choose how to carry out capital punishment, and it should be televised. And that way everybody knows. You don't just fear the government, per Romans 13. You fear the people that are the ones who empower the government, because the right to self-defense and to take life for capital punishment didn't go to the government. It went to the individuals that came off the ark. It rests with us. We just simply delegate it to the government. But I think there ought to be the option in our civil code for families to carry out that capital punishment as a reminder where our real values, where our real authority derives from, God, and that we delegate it to government. That's my personal opinion. Now, with that being said, these are not just non-believers being killed. I want to make it very clear. You know for a fact these are Christians that are being murdered as well, right?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes. Well, not all the murdered people Christians,
right,
but definitely Christians. I've been hearing reports from Christians who know Christians there who are just horrified because their brothers and sisters are being murdered. Definitely.
Oh, so let me play this clip from 2017. This was about the controversy because we were saying you should be having interfaith dialogue with a Jew-hating, Holocaust-denying, Hitler-defending, jihadi-preaching imam named Yasser Qadi in my backyard in the Mid-South. And when Usama and Shrum and I called it out, we started getting attacked by these hyper-Calvinists who wanted to come to the defense of James White. And at a conference, this was referenced by Justin Peters, and here's what was said 8 years ago.
Islam does not pose a threat to the church. My sheep.
I want you to hear that again, folks.
Islam does not pose a threat to the church.
Wow. What do you think of that? How do the folks in Syria feel about that comment today, Aaron?
You know, I can't quite get into the mind of someone who says that. Then obviously not living in a reality that we are living in the sense that, you know, it's like the prophets say, people have eyes, but they do not see. They have ears, but they do not hear. You know, it reminds me of Lot when he fled Sodom and Gomorrah. They went into a cave and the daughters got him drunk. I don't know what they were doing with wine when they fled, but they had wine. And people are drunk with a different mentality and a different understanding of the days. And so it shocks me to hear that kind of statement.
Let me play a little more. Let me back it up, play a little more as well. Here we go.
Islam does not pose a threat to the church. My sheep hear me. My sheep hear my voice. I know my sheep. My sheep know me. I know my sheep. They will not follow another. They will not follow the voice of a stranger. Read John chapter 10, all throughout John chapter 10. There is not going to be, this possibility, this scenario will never happen. There will never be a Christian sitting in any venue, I don't care what it is, in any venue, listening to someone expound upon Islam and say, oh, wow, that is really compelling. I think I'm going to follow Muhammad. That's not going to happen. That's a theological impossibility.
Yeah, well, no one was making that case, so that's a straw man argument because we were never making that case. What we were making the case for, Sharam, as you remember, because you were part of it 8 years ago, was that this is desensitizing the church. It's a violation of 2 John 9 through 11, and it's desensitizing the church to think that we can make friends with and common ground with the Muslim. All you're doing is inviting them in for Sharia. And now, by the way, which I have over at worldviewreport.com today, they have actually set up they have now announced New Jersey's, here we go, look at this, New Jersey's first Islamic city, Muslim politicians seize power in Patterson, declare it the capital of Palestine in America, raise Islamic flags, and advance Sharia. I wonder if that might be a threat to churches and ministries, a spiritual threat to churches and ministries, Sharam. But again, that was a straw man argument. None of us ever said someone that's a true believer is going to denounce Christ and convert to Islam. We never said that. That was a total mischaracterization of what we were saying. But they had to twist it and change the debate to cover for their sins. Your thoughts?
Never said that.
But back up. We lost a few seconds of you. Back up just a tad.
Oh, sorry. I said I agree with you that we never said that a true believer would fall away from the faith or apostatize to follow Islam. However, what he says is that Islam is not a threat to the church. So right now, as we sit, the largest persecutor of Christians globally, by far, is not government, it is Islam. This has been proven year and year and year again. Open Doors, poster numbers every year of the top 10 countries that are persecuting, jailing, raping, and killing Christians. 9 out of those 10 nations, other than North Korea, is an Islamically controlled, Sharia-controlled country that is being motivated by Islam, by the ideology, by the text, by Surah chapter 9, verse 73, where the prophet is telling Muslims, "O you prophet, perform jihad against the infidels and the hypocrites and be harsh with them. And their abode will be hell, and evil is their final place." This is talking about Christians and Jews. So what we have warned about then, and what Paul warns about in 1 Timothy, Brandon, which is that the Spirit expressly states that in the latter times some will abandon the faith to follow deceitful spirits and the teachings of demons, doctrines of demons, lying spirits. So So you can't have it both ways, Justin. You can't say that Islam poses no spiritual threat to the church. No Christian can be confused by it. Certainly, Brandon, what we did say was that it can bring confusion, that interfaith and multi-faith and the belief that Islam is basically common to Christianity. And what we warned about in Syria was that once Islam takes control, once you have a absolutely jihadist fundamentalist taking control, yes, they will kill the Alawite Shia-based Muslims or the Druze, but they're also massacring Christians. This is ethnic cleansing. Israel.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Israel is not committing ethnic cleansing because the population in Gaza has increased. But what has happened to the population of Christians in Syria, for example? It has decreased, whether it was the attempts 10 years ago or what they're doing now. This is ethnic cleansing, and yet it seems like the only country on the planet talking about it is Israel.
Mm-hmm. But this is 100%. This is a spiritual threat, not in that Christians will lose their salvation.
Right.
This is a spiritual threat, as in this demonic system is trying to wipe out Christianity in that region and then go over there and take care of Israel, which is, again, all a part of this spiritual battle, Aaron.
And let's not forget all of these millions and millions, or what is it, 1 billion now, Muslims. Who are they following? They are following a man who claims to be a prophet. And he claims to be the last great prophet. Well, 600 years before he came on the scene, or 520 years, my Lord and Savior, Jesus, Yeshua, he said, I am the first and I am the last. So who is the last? Is it Jesus, who was 520, 40 years before Muhammad, or is it Muhammad? So you've got all these people following a prophet. In my view, he is a false prophet.
Yes.
And so you've got that spirit behind it. Not only that, you've got these principalities and powers that Paul talks about. They get latched on to belief systems. The belief system in Islam is not the same as the Judeo-Christian views and values. So that's the principalities and powers, the belief system of Islam. So that is an absolute a strong spiritual opposition. And I really like what Shahram said about all these nations.
Hold right there. Hard break. We'll come right back to your hard break and a video of Christians pleading for help. Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. Last night, lesson 32, as I'm teaching through the book of Revelation, lesson 32 last night, the second beast out of the earth. That'd be the false prophet. We're talking about false prophets right now, aren't we? And guess what, folks? All of these false prophets, whether it's the false prophet of Mohammed or the false prophets of the New Apostolic Reformation, all of these false prophets are laying the foundation for what will be the ultimate false prophet coming up out of the earth, that second beast, demonically inspired, and will do false signs and wonders, or they may be real, quote, signs and wonders, but of course they're coming from demonic power, as the false prophet will be thoroughly demonized. under the control of Satan. The text says that. And he will have the full authority of the Antichrist and will be performing and doing these things and exercising the authority of the Antichrist in front of the Antichrist. This is a duo, if you will, that will show up, and Revelation 13 describes it. We went into great detail last night, I did, in my study. You can find it online now if you didn't catch it live last night. We had several thousand watching live last night. We're thankful for that. But you can watch it now for the first time or share with a friend. It's at worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com. Joining me is Aaron Lavarco out of Israel, reporter on the ground, brought to you by our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com, and then also Sharam Hadian of tilministry.com. Let me have you finish what you were saying there, please, if you would, Aaron.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish off by saying carrying on what Sharam was saying, talking about the many nations that have been Islamized. You know, I have a real heart and passion for England. My father was born there. I was born in New Zealand, part of the British Commonwealth. Do you remember the days Billy Graham, his crusades in the 1950s and the 60s? Britain was taken over by these crusades. The churches were totally packed out. Shops, everything was closed on Sundays. Laundry wasn't allowed to be put out on Sundays. Some of those very same churches now, believe it or not, are mosques.
Yep.
The church has fallen away. The money hungry or the money backed Muslims are taking over England. I was there with my son about 2 years ago, downtown London, and it happened to be on a day where there was a Muslim parade. I told my son, we're getting out of here. It was scary. They have a mission, they have a goal to take over London, and in many places that is what's happening. So this is nonsense to say that this is not a spiritual warfare or there's no spiritual impact on that. Listen, you may be a strong Christian, but you may have deep insecurities, and fear may grip you because these people, they're intimidating, and fear may grip you. That's what the Lord said. He said, men's hearts will fail them for fear and for the things that are coming on the earth. So, just like in the days of Gideon, when the Lord withered down the army from 32,000 to 22,000, he told them, all those that are afraid, go home. And so many turned away and went back. So I'm under no illusion that this is a spiritual warfare.
Amen to that. Listen to this and tell me if this man doesn't feel a physical and spiritual threat to the body of Christ. This is them pleading out of Syria. Here we go. Let me unmute it. I had it muted so it wouldn't bleed over. All right. I think I fixed it. Thankfully, X has come back up, at least during the show. Here we go.
Covering my face now because I don't want anyone to see my face, because if they see me, they will kill me. I'm from Syria. I live now in the city of Latakia. Please, please, please. The media is not showing you anything. The terrorists are killing everyone, children, women, teenagers, old people, just killing. There is more than 100 bodies in my village now. Even in the city, they are just taking the children and the women and kill them. I don't know what to do with my mom and my two sisters. Please, you gotta help us. Nobody is talking anything about it. Not the social media or the TV channels. They are all hiding the truth. They are saying that they are killing the resistance, but this is end up 2 days ago. Please, you gotta help us. They have been killing people since 2 days until now. Hundred of bodies are thrown in the street, in the villages, and in the city of Syria. We are not allowed to go out of the house. They just come to the houses, take the people, kill them outside of the house, and take all the phones so nobody record or do anything. Please, you gotta help us. I have two sisters. I have two sisters. I don't know what to do with them. If it's okay for me if I die, but not for my two sisters or my mom. One of them is a teenager. Please, you gotta help us. Nobody's talking anything about it. Human rights, United Nations, anyone, America, anyone, just please help us. You need to do something about it. The social media is not showing anything. Most of my relative people are dead in my village. There is bodies in the street. We are afraid for the little kids. There is nobody left. Like we are being killed all of us, all the Alawite and the Christian. For God's sake, if you believe in humanity, if you believe in any religion that you want, just please, you need to save us. You need to do something about this. The TV is not showing anything, not Al Jazeera, not any TV channel. They are all covering what's happening now. Until this moment, there is people coming from another from another cities from Syria, like Idlib and Hama and Homs. They are coming just to kill people. They are still coming until now and killing people randomly. Not women or children or anything. They kill everybody. They are demons. They are not human beings. And nobody is talking anything about it. I don't know what will happen to me in the next hour. Or
He can't talk. He's crying. I don't know if he says anything more, but folks, here we go.
Please, human rights, United Nations, anyone who can hear me, just please save us. You need to do something quickly. We are running out of time. There is no more Christian or Alawite to kill anymore. You need to save what the rest of us.
Wow, he called them demons. You think, Sharam, he feels a physical and spiritual threat right now?
Yeah, absolutely, right? You can see that it is oozing out of him, the fear, and also the confusion, right, Brandon? It's the confusion. Where are those who should be right now fighting for them? He mentioned the UN. They're not going to come because they're controlled by the Islamic movement. They mentioned the media. Al Jazeera is filming the jihadists there and what's going on. They're filming it for posterity. The number, I just read another article from an observer there who claims to be part of the UN. They're saying that number, the victims in Syria on the coast and in homes is maybe close to 10,000. So did you hear him, Brandon? He said there's none of us left. There's very little of us left. That's ethnic cleansing. That's genocide. That's what's happening. And yet, again, the silence. And here is my challenge right now. Everybody should be calling the Trump administration. Forget the United Nations. Rubio came out and made a statement about, we condemn radical Islamic terrorism. Well, you and I know this is not radical Islamic terrorism. This is Islam. This is what they've been commanded to do. But where's the pressure right now on the United States government to say, we need to not only bring attention to this, but there's got to be pressure immediately on every Islamic nation surrounding. There's got to be pressure on Turkey. There's got to be pressure on NATO. There's got to be pressure. Remember, Turkey is pulling the strings. This is exactly what we predicted would happen a few weeks ago. Turkey is pulling the strings. This is ethnic cleansing. They're paving the way for an ultimate invasion of Israel. And yet, from the heart of a former Muslim, Brandon, from the heart of a pastor, from the heart of a believer, for the fact that we are to care for the suffering brothers and sisters around the world, why our ministry has continually tried to bring attention to the hundreds of millions of Christians, the greatest number ever in church history, that are at risk right now of persecution, death, rape, torture, and being killed. Where is those voices? I'm still waiting, and it's crickets. It's crickets. I challenge James White. I challenge Justin Peters. I challenge these folks to come out immediately and issue a statement of condemnation and say, this is what Islam is. No, they're going to defend Islam.
And that it is a spiritual threat. And that it is a spiritual threat. Because it is a demonic system, and these people worship Satan. So while maybe, again, the false straw man he put up that, no one's going to become a believer and then deny Christ and convert to Islam. We never said that. That doesn't mean that doesn't eliminate the spiritual threat of Islam to the church, to people's physical safety and their spiritual well-being, their spiritual peace, right? I mean, that man sobbing for his sisters, his mother. Yeah. He's feeling physical, but he's also feeling spiritual threat and spiritual persecution because he says it's demonic. He used the word demons.
Yes, exactly, Brandon. So Justin Peters, James White, these people, number one, need to repent, because they need to repent for how they've deceived Christians by the lies. They protected Islam. They protected a spiritual antichrist system. Remember when we were going through this debate with them, I challenged James White, I challenged Justin Peters. I said, will you come out and acknowledge that Islam is an antichrist spirit? It is a spiritual threat to the gospel, to Christianity, to Jesus Christ, because it denies who Christ is to the core. They were silent, nothing. They need to come out, and not only do they need to repent for what they've said in the past, but then acknowledge, as you said. I want to ask Justin Peters a question. If these people were in his backyard, if these jihadists led by Jelani, this ISIS offshoot, were in his backyard, wherever he lives, and were going to break down his door and kill his family, would he then have the guts to say what he said, that they are not a spiritual threat? This is not a spiritual threat at all? No. At that moment, he would recognize, bingo, this is demonic. This is a spiritual threat. We are battling, yes, spiritual principalities, as Aaron said earlier. We're not just fighting the flesh and blood, because they are demonically controlled. Most people do not know. These ISIS fighters, Brandon, that they import in, these people, in order to do what they do, they have to take hallucinogenic drugs. They are high. They are demonically possessed. This is absolutely spiritual. For them to be able to have the callous, all the imagery of where they're getting these Christians and Alawites and Druze walking and barking like dogs before they shoot them in the head. I'm so broken after having all the videos that I've watched over the weekend that have come out of the treatment. Again, the world is silent except for when it comes to Israel, except for when it comes to the Jews. What hypocrisy! If that doesn't prove the hypocrisy of the world, if that doesn't prove the hypocrisy of these anti-Semites in the church, I don't know what will.
Yep, let's get excellent. Let's get a response from Aaron when we come back. I also want to play a video that I played last night on television, part of my Revelation series, and it has shook some people to the core. My wife can't quit talking about it, and she said, I do hope you're going to play that today. It is a video of Jordan Peterson interviewing Elon Musk. You know, one day I'm cheering for Elon, the next day I'm going, wow, you kind of scare me, buddy. Does anyone else have that reaction with Elon? One day I'm cheering him, the next day I'm like, you're scaring me, Elon. Well, he has what he says may be our next God right here in my backyard in Memphis. You have to hear this when we come back. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. Welcome back. Glad you're with us. Be sure to stay tuned for Crosstalk coming up at the top of the hour. VCY.org. V as in Victor, VCY.org. And Jim Schneider, the host of Crosstalk. That's been around since the 1970s. So stay tuned. If you're not on one of their terrestrial stations, you're free to jump off of our network. That's not a problem. Our networks are closely tied together and we support each other. And so you're free to jump over there and listen. VCY.org, V as in Victor, VCY.org. We also carry it on demand at worldviewradio.com, worldviewradio.com. That's the day after, but you're welcome to listen to it live at VCY.org. I want to go real quick and get a response from Aaron on what Shahram said, but also want to throw in something into a mix here. And that is something that Elon said in an interview with Jordan Peterson. And this is in my backyard. I'm just sitting a few miles from Memphis where he says our next God may be coming from. Not mine, not yours, folks, but listen to what Jordan Peterson and Elon say. Here we go. Ready, guys? Here we go.
You said you were up till 4 a.m.
Yeah,
so,
actually a little more like 5 in the morning. But
okay.
We got the XAI data center or supercomputer center training from beginning installation to start of training in 19 days, which is the fastest that anyone has ever gotten a supercomputer to train.
And is that in that new building off to the side?
That's in Memphis, actually.
It's in Memphis?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's where you were?
Yeah.
I see.
Memphis,
okay.
The capital of ancient Egypt.
Right. Yeah, you're bringing what?
Perhaps that's where our new God will come from.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Yeah, I wish that was funny. Yeah, okay, so I want to talk to you about alignment.
I wish that was funny.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
Look.
It seems like Elon Musk.
All right, there you go. That may be where our new God comes from. And he chuckles. Now, last night I went into great detail, Aaron, on how I believe this system is not the mark of the beast system, not the beast system yet, because there's no beast that's been declared. But I believe this is laying the foundation where AI will find. Look, I just saw where Doge is, where it was able to find certain people inside the government. I'll have to find the article, but I noticed it this morning, and Doge was able to find people based on where they were at. And I thought, well, that's exactly right. And this is what I warned last night, that this system is going to be used to track down believers in the tribulation, track down Jews, to stop us from buying or selling. I'm not saying these people know what they're doing. I don't think they do, but I think they're building the technology that will end up being the technology, all of them, not just about Elon, talking about Sam Altman and all of them across the board. I'm not picking on Elon because there are days I really like what he's doing. There are days I'm like, Lord, please save Elon's soul. You want to comment here, Aaron?
Well, all I can really comment and say is this. It's like Paul said. Everything is what was the word he used? Everything is permissible, but not everything is good. And television, cell phones, AI can be used for incredibly good things.
Yes.
The question is who's behind it? What is the mindset behind it? What is the programming behind it? Is it a Judeo-Christian, biblically based system? And it can be used for good. If it's not, then look out. That is very dangerous.
One of the things that they're finding, of course, is where all this Doge money has gone and who's taking it. So eventually, this just shows us the power, Shahram, of this system. And can you imagine this under the control of Antichrist, who's aligned himself with Muslim nations eventually to go after what will be tribulation saints and Jews?
One can only imagine the control, but I agree with you 100% that we're watching the foundation being laid. And I'm right there with you with Elon, because there are times that, like you said, you're grateful for the things that are doing the technology that is ferreting out the corruption and what's been hidden, because they need that technology to be able to unhide how well the deep state is hidden, particularly the money, but yet the technocracy, the fact that he is a godless man, and the world's richest man, perhaps, very obviously very powerful, very influential, is very concerning. And this is what they're setting up to track, like you said. So just like with Neuralink, his Neuralink, right? It's under the guise of, oh, it's really good. We're going to help people walk. We're going to help people see. We're going to help people, to talk. But yet we know, as Aaron said, that technology in the hands of the beast system that the Bible tells us is going to be used for great evil. And that's the double-edged sword of it. So it's always a double-edged sword. But this is why we have to be discerning. We can celebrate certain things that are positive, but we have to be discerning and not just drink the Kool-Aid and think everything is good.
Absolutely. Quick comment from you, Aaron, before we run out of time, and that is, President Trump says we're down to the final moments when it comes to Iran. Your government, our government, seems to be working to make a strike on Iran. And of course, that's going to have implications for us here in the U.S. with the terror cells here, I'm afraid. Aaron?
Oh, Brennan, look, we've been talking about it for years. BB's been talking about it. Something has got to happen. And look, I don't want it to turn back on you guys. But if nothing happens, it also may turn on you guys as well. So we don't know. But right for now, we're concerned about what's happening in Syria, because as that man that you showed in the video, Brandon, he was saying he's an Alawite. The leader of the Alawites made that letter to Benjamin Netanyahu asking for help. And if Israel gets involved in this, which I think we're going to have to, because we're looking after the Druze as well, then who knows if Turkey aren't going to back up Giuliani and his people. He's behind them financially anyway. So anything and everything could happen. Let's just stay tuned.
I found that article.
And on our knees in prayer.
Yeah,
you found that article.
Yeah, in prayer. I found that article. Here it is. U.S. State Department launches AI-based initiative to locate foreign students supporting Hamas and revoke their visas. And I'm going, yay! That's awesome.
Good.
But how do we know the next story when we get into the tribulation isn't AI-based initiative to locate believers in Yeshua and Jews? I mean,
yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
They're going to use it now to locate students supporting a terrorist organization. That just shows you the power of this, right? They're going to use this AI and it's going to locate them. It's going to find where they are. And watch how this system eventually is used and technology to locate tribulation saints and Jews. Oh, wow. It's moving so quickly. Don't go away, gentlemen. Stay right there if you would, please. That's the end of the broadcast here for this time. But folks, again, pray for the people of Syria. Hey, let's all start a prayer campaign and pray for the salvation of Elon. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Take care.
Amen.
And we're back on WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and Worldview Tube. I think we should all, as believers, be praying for Elon's salvation, and that would, of course, be something we could really rejoice in, as we do on the salvation of anyone. But yeah, let's pray for that. We want to comment on this article. U.S. State Department launches AI-based initiative to locate foreign students supporting Hamas. Aaron, Sharon, that's exactly what we were saying till I could find the article. I mean, it shows you they can pinpoint right where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, there's that double-edged sword. So the technology is there. They're developing the technology for a beast system. They're developing the technology for the nature of the mark, ultimately, of not being able to buy and sell. So that's why there's got to be discernment here. As you said, your initial reaction is, yay, and then you go, wait, whoa, hold on a second. You get that check in your spirit. You're like, oh, wait a second. This is not maybe good long term, because this is going to be used against God's people, against those that God is going to be seeking to reach. And already we know, look, this is under this administration. If right now we had a Kamala in the White House, we would not be going, yay. We would be going, oh, my Lord, they're going to hunt us down, which is exactly what we thought before the election, right?
Right.
If Trump doesn't get in, we're going to be hunted down. We're going to be criminalized. So this is a window of opportunity. As you said, I think well said, we need to pray for the salvation of this man, because I can see Elon going one of either both ways, right? And by the way, I was going to mention this earlier. You mentioned the beast, that second beast of Revelation. What's ironic, Brandon, is that I've been warning, and you guys know that I've been talking about Turkey. Turkey is the seat of now the Muslim movement. It is the power of the Muslim movement, because the Saudis are kind of, they're kind of trying to, quote, moderate this whole Abraham Accord with Trump and Israel. The Saudis are saying for the first time, we'll agree to the Abraham Accords. We don't have to have a Palestinian state. That's, historic. So where's the power? It's Turkey. And where did God say was the throne of Satan? In Turkey. So Pergamus, right? That's the eastern headquarters of the Roman Empire, but that was the throne of Satan. And how ironic now, Turkey is mentioned 4 times in Ezekiel 38, right? So all eyes on Turkey, all eyes on the Islamic powerhouse. And ironically, Surah chapter 27 in the Quran, Brandon, it mentions the beast of the earth. I don't know if you know that. It mentions that Allah, their God, will raise up a beast from the earth because of the deception. And according to the hadith, they believe that beast, who will carry either the staff of Moses or the seal of Solomon, is going to come out of Mecca, is going to come out of the Kaaba. This is what Islam teaches, that the beast of the earth. So that's just, you know, maybe it's interesting, maybe it's not, but it's the this is why when I became a Christian, I'm like, oh my goodness, Islamic eschatology is the opposite of the Bible. It's right. Exactly the opposite. And that's why it's a spiritual threat, Justin Peters. It's a spiritual threat because it's a spirit against Christ. Any spirit against Christ is a spiritual threat.
Yeah, I mean, the Bible tells us constantly, be alert, be sober-minded. John 10 warns about the hireling that runs off and doesn't protect the sheep from the spiritual threat, right? I mean, I don't know how someone can make such a stupid comment, but then again, I do. You know, when you're drinking from the well of a false gospel of hyper Calvinism, which I think in itself is satanic, don't be shocked that you have other manifestations. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, Brandon. You're absolutely right, because all you need is a little bit of poison, right, in the water. It doesn't take a whole bit of poison. A little bit of poison in the water, and the bitter. In fact, I was teaching on wormwood Sunday at our church on Revelation 8. And you know, the bitterness, just like spiritually, right? If we let a little bit of bitterness come in our hearts, the bitterness can take root. Unforgiveness can take root, and that little bit of bitterness can then systematically destroy us over time.
Absolutely.
Well, same thing. All you need is a little bit of poison. So these guys come across as if they're preaching the gospel, but when you dig deep and when you see that it is a false gospel, then there should be no shock that then they can get confused about another false god, as Aaron said earlier. There's no doubt.
Well, the similarities between Calvinism, hyper Calvinism and Islam, Usama has shown us the massive similarities. Quick comment, Aaron, about Turkey before we run out of time. The music's playing. Sorry, go ahead though.
Well, no, I just agree with Shaham that they are the seat of power now, and we need to look out for them. And be watchmen on the wall, and alert, and pray, and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, the Lord said, and make sure that the leaven that we're eating is the pure, right word of God, not watered down at all.
Sharam and Aaron, thank you guys. Thank you, folks. Take care.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan, and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Senator, as someone who enlisted in the military specifically because of Al-Qaeda's terrorist attack on 9/11 and committing myself and my life to doing what I could to defeat these terrorists, it was shocking and a betrayal to me and every person who was killed on 9/11, their families and my brothers and sisters in uniform. When as a member of Congress, I learned about President Obama's dual programs that he had begun really to overthrow the regime of Syria, and being willing to, through the CIA's timber sycamore program that has now been made public of working with and arming and equipping Al-Qaeda in an effort to overthrow that regime, starting yet another regime change war in the Middle East. DoD train and equip program, again, begun under President Obama, is widely been known, looked at, and studied, that ultimately resulted in over $500 million being used to train who they called moderate rebels, but were actually fighters working with and aligned with Al-Qaeda's affiliate on the ground in Syria, all to move forward with their regime change and not acknowledging what was obvious at the time and what has unfortunately borne true, which was that a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change wars in Iraq, the toppling of Gaddafi and Mubarak, while these are all dictators, would likely result in the rise of Islamist extremists like Al-Qaeda taking power. I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance, and who has already begun to persecute and kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
I understand.
Why that should be acceptable to anyone is beyond me.
It shouldn't
is
be.
certainly
And I
not in our
understand,
interests.
It's not acceptable. Syrian government Islamists are massacring Christians and Alawites and Druze and all kinds of other ethnic minorities in the country now. Is that a harbinger for America? Well, welcome back to More War Monday. The Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube, our X Spaces simulcast. We're also on Rumble, YouTube, Truth Social Plus, Amazon, and Roku. Well, they called Tulsi Gabbard a Russian asset for speaking out against Syria's interim government. It only took less than a month for what she said to come true and become a reality. What's really happening there? The geostrategic situation is complex and it involves the United States, Russia, Israel, Turkey, Iran, China, and many more. Overlaying what we're seeing there onto the United States internally, considering the tens of thousands of potential Islamist terrorists that have been let in through our open southern border, gives me great pause, folks. Based on what I'm seeing, we're at very high risk of a significant homeland attack by Islamists that will exceed 9/11 and likely exceed what the October 7th attacks in Israel looked like exponentially. All Americans should be at an elevated state of alertness, in my opinion. My guest today is the man that wrote that book, If It Takes 1,000 Years. Former Army Captain Jesse Petria has traveled worldwide on fact-finding missions. He's researched the mindset of the jihadists and the policies that enable them. He served as a civilian advisor to the U.S. Department of State and was a liaison officer in the Army to the Afghan secret police, facilitating the interrogations of over 400 captured Taliban and Al-Qaeda members. That's why you should read that book, If It Takes 1,000 Years. That's where the information came from. Jesse, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Thank you, Colonel Maness. I appreciate it. Great to be back.
It's good to see you. I wish it was under better circumstances, though. I had no idea that, sorry about that audio. I had no idea when I asked you to come on a few weeks ago that this was going to be happening and this timing of what we're seeing happen in Syria the last 4 days or so. But
well, unfortunately, it's only going to continue given what we witnessed for the last 4 years of us not only supplying and aiding the jihadists around the world, but opening our southern border and allowing millions of people through, and no doubt thousands of which are jihadists who are just laying in wait, plotting the next attack.
Yeah, you've been studying this for a long, long time, and not just with tunnel vision either, from a broad geostrategic political perspective, Jesse. And I just wanted to ask you this question before we dive too deep into the strategy and tactics of what we need to be thinking about. And that is, why was Ms. Gabbard right and so many in power? I mean, there's guys like you and me, folks like Sarah Adams, the former CIA analyst and targeter, that's